All right, y'all. I found a crazy cool document on census.gov, okay? This document is about the history of the census forms, and it's a long ass document. And it's a particular portion in here that's very important because some of us, when we're doing our tree, I'm starting to notice, I've been noticing that a lot of my black people, I can't get some of them past the mid to early 1800s unless they have some white or Indian mixed in them, or they're black Indians, and they have paperwork. Then a lot of their paperwork stops at about 1825. Anybody born after a certain date from that is past the 1850 census, I kind of reached some snags. Now, some people like this one that has a lot of Indians in it. I have a lot of paperwork and people for her, but some people I found quite a bit there and some there, and those are black. And some black people I was able to find to go back quite a bit. These where it stops, and so I was wondering why. And the first thing you start to think of is, oh, blah blah blah. Maybe they were slaves for real, and there's no records because they were slaves. That's what I started thinking at first, to be honest with you. But I was like, nah, I'm too much. I got to get some proof. I got to get something else before I can accept that. And I found this document randomly today, and it actually says what happened to documents prior to the mid 1800s. It says, unfortunately, many of these early censuses were burned in the British during by the British during the War of 1812, 1790, 1800, and a good portion of 1810, particularly from states like Virginia and Maryland, were lost and had to be recreated from other data. And as a matter of fact, George Washington is the only U.S. president that we don't have an original census form for because he died in 1799 before the 1800 census. And the 1790 census was burnt during the war. So, what does this mean? It means that if you reach a snag with a black person in your family in the mid to early 1800s and you can't go no further, it is not your fault. It is not the fact that they are actually some kind of slave. If they were not a slave up to this point, you can't just necessarily throw them in the slave bucket at that point. We got to have proof. But it's definitely not going to say that. I mean, it's definitely not going to be that. At this point, you have to say that the reason why we don't have proof is because all United States citizens between that time should not have proof. Most of the people who I showed that have proof, especially the YT people, are the YT people and the Indians in my family, like I said. So I'll show you really fast. That person goes back. All of these people are Indians, and then you have an Irish person here. He says he was born in Louisiana, but his parents came from Ireland. And I can go back even further with them. And why can I go back? Because their documents are in Ireland. Okay? So it's the same thing with if it was somebody British or somebody else. This is a person, French Nancy. That's a French person that mixed in way early with an Indian. These are Indians over here. So they got their paperwork. And I believe that maybe a lot of the Indian paperwork may have survived because it was in Indian territory at the time. And maybe the French wars or whatever didn't reach getting their documents. But as far as the documents here, and to be honest, these could have been Indian documents as well. As I say that, we don't know what documents were burnt on top of the census forms and things of that nature. So you can't say that you can't say that automatically all black people were slaves because they can't find proof of their information because a lot of it was burnt. And also, you can't say that all black people came from Africa because there's no proof of that. When we pull up the actual slave population census, it says 300,000 came over, but it shows hundreds of thousands that was already here, plus another millions other that show up later as well that don't come that show up on the census after the importation of slaves was banned. So, anyways, like I said, man, this document right here proves that if you can get at least back to the early 1800s, then you good. If the people that are trying to tell you, hey, if you can't show us ancestors from prior to then, pull this shit up, screenshot it, and tell them to kiss your ass and quit playing with us.